Hey everybody, this week's episode is brought to you by Off the Record. Did you know that the average driver gets 9 traffic tickets in their lifetime? Look, I'll be the first to admit that I've taken maybe a couple of liberties with traffic laws back in the day. And of course, when I got caught, I had to go to court to fight the ticket, which was always a hassle. And each time that I lost my case, it meant big fines, points on my record, and higher insurance premiums. Eventually, I realized that nothing beats having a good attorney argue your case in court. So here's what you do. You download the Off the Record app to your phone and register for an account. And if you get a ticket, simply upload a photo of your ticket into the app and you will be quickly matched with a lawyer in your jurisdiction. Your lawyer will start working your case right away, and in most cases, you'll never have to set foot in a courtroom. Off the Record has a 97% success rate and a 4.9 star rating on Google. And guess what? They even offer a money-back guarantee if they aren't able to reduce the points or keep that ticket fully off your record. Best of all, I've arranged a 10% discount for all of my YouTube viewers, so download the app and register using the referral code FASTLIFE to receive 10% off your first case. So we're back. Over the years, there have been many car movies. Movies like Bullet, Smokey and the Bandit, Cannonball Run, Gone in 60 Seconds, and other movies like American Graffiti. Likewise, we have had witnessed many TV shows that were built around cars. Knight Rider, Starsky and Hutch, Dukes of Hazzard, The Rockford Files, and of course, Magnum P.I., to name a few. But what do those shows have in common with Fast and Furious? Well, what these shows have in common is that they all motivate audiences to buy these cars. Facts. I think that the Fast and Furious movies were at least partially responsible for introducing the Skyline GTR into the United States. We got a glimpse of the R34 in the first movie. Too Fast, Too Furious audiences were introduced to the R34 GTR. The Miami street race scene was a love note to the R34 GTR. And in the moment, the R34 GTR made an indelible impression on moviegoers globally. But before I move on, I want to set the record straight. All of the Skylines in Too Fast and Furious were real GTRs, and I have the paperwork and even a copy of the check that we used to buy these cars. They were all GTRs. So if someone starts spewing that they were GTTs, you can tell them that they can go gargle with my hairy beanbag. I'm sick and tired of those people. Then, in Tokyo Drift, we got another peek at an R33 with a paint job that was seemingly from a 1980s custom van. And finally in Fast 4, we would get another glimpse at an R34 GTR. However, this would be the last appearance of an R34 GTR in a major role. The fact that an R34 GTR would appear was all Paul Walker's idea. So here's the story of the Fast 4 Skyline. And yes, I did a video about this a few years ago, but there have been new developments and I had missed some information, so we're going to get all through that today. But if you saw Fast 4, you probably remember at least something about the plot. It starts with Dom and Letty trying to hijack a gas truck in the Dominican Republic, which was funny because it was filmed at Lake Castaic, north of Newhall, California. I used to live there, so that's how I know that. Later, Dom gets word that Letty was killed, and Dom is forced to come out of hiding to catch Braga, right? But before he can identify the bad guys, Dom runs across Brian O'Connor, who is now trying to redeem himself in the eyes of the FBI. Both Brian and Dom learn about a street race audition. Brian's bosses approves an operation to infiltrate Braga's crew. Sounds familiar, right? It's the same plot of Too Fast and Furious. Brian is asked to pick out a car suitable for the mission. Surprise! Brian, of course, picks an R34 GTR and gets to work to modify the car. Cue the garage scene. Again, Universal was going to have to go find another R34 GTR. At the time, back in 2008, the R34 GTR was still not legal in the United States thanks to the 25-year rule. Motor-X was already shut down, so what were they going to do? However, there was one way there was a way to get the chassis, the body of the car, into the United States. A company called Kaizo was bringing in R34 GTR bodies. This was considered legal as long as you didn't reunite the body with the car's powertrain. Kaizo was doing that. At that time, it was kind of a loophole. You could bring in the body, but you could not bring in the powertrain for the purpose of skirting the regulations for imports. Kaizo was allegedly bringing in a chassis, marrying the chassis to the LS3 engine or an RB25, and that's what they were doing for a while. The owner of Kaizo, Daryl, had one of these bodies, and a deal was struck with Universal. He had an R34 GTR for the Hero. It didn't have an engine in it at the time, so it was just a body. So if you're keeping score, there was only one GTR in Fast 4. But to be clear, the Fast 4 GTR was not Paul Walker's personal car. People who are spreading that rumor are absolutely wrong. I'm going to say it again slow. The Fast 4 GTR was not Paul Walker's GTR. The Hero car, though, was actually a genuine 2002 GTR. The odometer read 3728 when they got the car. The car featured Volk RE30 wheels, an East Bear hood, a Nismo bumper, and a Nismo side skirts, and a Turbonetics intercooler. They also added an NE1 titanium exhaust system. Inside of the car, you would find OMP racing seats, a Momo steering wheel, a custom roll bar, a set of Nismo springs helped in the handling department. Those were the main modifications that they did to the car. Because of the complexity of the stunts, Universal also realized that it was going to require the use of at least 7 GTTs, the ER34s. Using the less expensive and less collectible GTT just made more sense for stunt cars because it's cheaper, and for a green screen they were just going to use the cut up 240SX. Dennis and his team is very careful not to destroy collectible cars. Unfortunately, shots of the gauge cluster in the movie were not taken from the GTR. It was taken from one of the GTTs, so a lot of people call that as an inaccuracy thing or a technical flub. I mean, but it happens, right? The horsepower of the car was estimated at about 400 horsepower. It didn't have a lot of power adders or anything like that. The brakes got an unspecified upgrade, perhaps brake pads and maybe new rotors. It makes sense if they're going to use the car. Like I was saying before, there were no real performance mods because a Hero car is not for doing stunts and speed sequences. All it has to do is look pretty, right? However, they did turn up the boost a bit. Tuning the ECU was handled by a Magden M1 performance computer. The factory MFD multifunction display was ditched in favor of a Xenarc screen, which was linked to the computer. Looked pretty cool too. The 7 ER34 GTTs were converted to the GTR look by changing the rear quarter panels and adding an East Bear body kit. One of the GTTs was turned into a buggy, seriously like an old school VW dune buggy. This was necessary because this car would need to drive down a concrete staircase and a hill. So what happened to these cars after the movie? Well, they all went in different directions, pretty much. The explosion car, there wasn't much left of that. I think somebody bought the shell out after the movie, but I have not heard anything about that. So that thing is probably a hot mess, right? But since it was a GTT, don't cry yourself to sleep tonight. But after the movie, the Hero car got up with a customs dispute with Kaizo that lasted for several years. Ultimately, Kaizo agreed to export the car. The car wound up in Germany in a place called Munich Motor World, and it sat there for many years, owned by a fellow named Peter from, I believe, GTA. Rumors started in late 2022 or early 23 that the car would be up for sale soon. However, this was not the first attempt to sell this car. There was a big article several years ago in 2015. The car was offered for $5 million with a portion committed to a charity. There were no takers at that time at that price. It was premature to do that. But we do know that one of these cars ended up at Hollywood Star Cars in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. So that's one of the 7 chrome cars in Germany. Bought one of these cars late 2023. I saw it in person in December at Essen Motor Show. It will be restored to movie condition. You can count on that. And I've lost track of the other 2. And just last year, in 2023, I learned that the Hero 1 car, the car that was in Munich for several years, would be going to auction finally. By a lucky coincidence, I just happened to be in Europe during that week. I got an invitation to this warehouse where the car was being kept before the Bonhams auction. I didn't have time to go to the auction, but I was lucky enough to get into the warehouse and to see the car in the secret location. I actually got to get inside in the car, which was like chills, goosebumps, everything you would think. It was like a time capsule. You could almost smell the tree frog squash air freshener. Remember those? Anyway, it was an emotional for a couple of minutes there, but I got over it and just sat there and just took it all in. A couple of days after I visited the car, I learned that the car was sold for $1,350,000 USD. I thought the car was going to go for about $1.4 to $1.5 million. Not quite, but pretty close. But I'm happy this car is being cared for, but it's a shame that the car will not be displayed for the American fans. Kind of a bummer. A lot of these cars are moving out of the country. Middle East, you will never see those cars again. It is what it is. You buy the car, you can do whatever you want with it, right? That's going to be it for this time. Thanks for watching, everybody. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and if you'd like to recommend a topic, please leave a comment below. I want to answer your questions, and I want to produce the content that you want, so don't be shy. Just spit it out.